All right, we are live, I think. Let me double check.
Cue the background music, the intro.
I would, but I've got a dog that's trying to give it right now. Dozer
Yes, we are live.
has become a part of the show.
This is the Dozer Cast.
Yes, welcome to Dozer Cast, folks. I feel like I've got kind of a stuffy nose today. Has become a part of the show. I don't know why, but anyways, yeah. So today, we're gonna welcome, and we're gonna chat today about
the scariest thing you could ever think of.
Yeah, the great filter. And I guess maybe just a little background on it. In the 50s, a Italian physicist, he became an American physicist or United States physicist later on. He became naturalized. And he was at Los Alamos Labs, what do you call it? The big telescope lab or whatever. And him and a couple other scientists would chat at lunch on their, during lunch. And they were talking about UFOs and aliens and hypothesizing why they haven't seen them. And now I will say none of these guys believed in UFOs and aliens, but they did believe that amongst all the stars that may have all the planets, that may have all the stuff, that there had to be life, and they wondered why there hasn't been contact with intelligent life yet.
Yeah.
And so they kind of came up with a hypothesis, and it's named after Enrico Fermi, which is the astrophysicist, the Dr. Fermi, and it's called the Fermi Paradox. And sometimes it's called the Great Filter. So we're going to kind of lead off and chat about what the Great Filter is and talk about some historical examples
of what could possibly have been.
Of what has been kind of miniature filters.
It's interesting if you think about the evolutionary timeline and how long it is prior to what we know now as intelligence. And it's an interesting thought that there are tons and tons of other stars which may have planets, which may have supported life. And the idea of how small amount in that timeline, the percentage of it that human intelligence has been as what we know it, if we were to throw a dart at another planet, the likelihood of us hitting a timeline on that planet where the life there had evolved to intelligence would be so hard to hit. So this idea brings to light the idea that, or this theory brings to light the idea that there may be life on other planets, but they may be at a different place in this really long timeline, or they may have kind of hit the Rubicon and destroyed themselves.
Yeah, destroyed themselves or set themselves back. So we're going to chat about that, about what the Great Filter that they hypothesize is. And then this Great Filter hypothesis turns around and looks at us. So Dr. Fermi says, hey, there's so many planets, so many stars, so many planets, and even if just 5% of them have life, and only 5% of that life gains any kind of technological advance, then there would be billions of technologically advanced life forms out there. He even mentions that within the next century, he believes that we will see matter travel at the speed of light, which is an interesting thought. So travel at the speed of light is a huge barrier. And then if we go even further and wormholes and different means of doing energy, they talk about that. So the great filter is when a society reaches a technological advancement enough to destroy itself.
Yeah. Oh.
Or to end itself.
And if you look, we're now understanding, like with Göbekli Tepe, that there were on this planet that we inhabit civilizations that were pretty well advanced that just disappeared.
But yeah, here's the hypothesis on that. The Ice Age is coming, or the Ice Age is just ending, or something. And so a society collapses because of an environmental change.
Mm-hmm.
And so Göbekli Tepe, like 12,080 years ago. So that's, again, twice as far back as we believe the pyramids were made, was buried intentionally. So,
and it's not a tiny little dig site.
Yeah, Göbekli Tepe is impressive. It's big. It's spherical. They believe it was a temple.
The sheer magnitude of Earth being moved to bury it intentionally is astounding.
And it had awesome statues and art and everything else. So that means that over 12,000 years ago it was buried. How long did it exist before they buried it?
Yeah.
So that's where you reach the really big question. Is how long has mankind been around? How long has mankind existed in the technological world? Maybe not completely to the extreme we are now with our use of electricity, but they may have used other forms of gaining energy. And right now, for those watching, I'm flashing on the screen a picture of the Göbekli Tepe dig site. And you've got to imagine, in this one picture I'm showing, it goes off in all directions. And it's these kind of circular-ish huts that have these large pillars. Maybe these pillars were roof supports. On these pillars, there was, reliefs of jaguars and men and animals and things like that. So if this is 12,000 years old, again, that's what we've got to impress on.
Well, and then there was The Guardian actually did a story the 23rd of this month. Human footprints thought to be the oldest in North America. Mm-hmm. They are believed to be between 21,000 and 23,000 years old.
So, yeah. Now that's just human footprints. So
right.
It might have been a human
yes. Yeah.
Maybe the earliest example of man, but this one is actual structures. This is built beautiful structures. I mean, it's amazing. These big circle structures. It pans a whole plateau in a time when archaeologists, up until they discovered this, and even for a while after, said,
nope,
man did not build. And this is an actual building structure. Maybe it was a temple. Maybe it was like a city. We're not exactly sure. There's a lot of hypothesis about it, but and a natural extinction event may have happened, that they buried it and ran away to avoid the extinction, but maybe they buried it to salvage it and hopefully come back to it and resume life, and they just couldn't get back to it.
Or perhaps they reached a Rubicon, so to speak, and they buried it to bury with it whatever they had created.
Yeah. Well, and then you've got the mounds here in the
Mhm.
United States. So the Native Americans here, long before Europeans came over here, were building mounds, building big cities. What's that place right outside of St. Louis? But anyways, it was a mound city, and yeah, Cahokia. Sorry, but Cahokia was a huge mound city, and it was found by some guys who was building a road, if I remember correctly, in the 60s. And so now they're looking into Cahokia. What was it? What caused them to leave? It's looking like what
Mhm.
may have caused them to leave was they had cleared all the gettable resources, the trees within gettable distance, so they kind of dispersed because of that. Is the hypothesis right now. And
What if one of our what if one of our filters, I guess you would say, is we pollute our cities so much that we leave them and bury them to use them as farmland, and 10,000 years from now the next civilization is like, wow, why did they bury this?
yeah, we don't know, or there could be a million reasons to bury it. I don't know. All of it is
It's a crazy thought.
wild thoughts, but we have examples of the great filter going further back in time, and so we're going to go back. So obviously, Gobekli Tepe is the oldest great filter example we may know of, and that, as far as we know, is because of natural events. But we've got the Bronze Age.
Yep.
Now, the Bronze Age lasted for forever. It kicks off, I think, around it says here 3200 BC, and what the Bronze Age was is um, they would get copper and tin. Now, copper was relatively easy to find, but tin generally came from a couple of forlorn areas. You had some in Italy, you had some in England, and you had some in what is now like the Middle East, Afghanistan, Iraq, and what have you. And so a global culture was built around bronze, around this new metal, this new tool that was coming up. And so they, all of a sudden, it just ends. It's going along everything else. You've got the story of the sea people. Now, what it says here is the Bronze Age ended abruptly around 1200 BC in the Middle East, North Africa, and Mediterranean Europe. Historians don't know for sure what caused the Bronze Age collapse, but many believe the transition was sudden, violent, and culturally disruptive. So at that time, the whole world was the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
That was where technology was building, where you've got the Greek arts coming into effect, all that stuff, and then it just ended. Then you have the story of the sea peoples, which may have been roaming bands of people who had been disfranchised because of the Bronze Age collapse, and then they start marauding and gathering together. And from some of the writings, they believe the sea people were some Mycenaeans or some Athena Greek, or what do they call them? Athena Greeks, not Athens. Anyways, Hellenic Greeks, which is the Greeks that have that pagan religion that they're known so well for. The Phoenicians, which are probably the modern day Palestinians,
Mm-hmm.
which they believe come from Carthage. And that's because they had this world trade. They had trade that went all the way from Afghanistan all the way across to the gates of Hercules or Heracles. And so it went all the way across, and then it just ended. So something happened that caused the end of the world.
Sudden, violent, and culturally disruptive.
And this is the one I look at.
That's an interesting way to view that, because I think we sometimes get caught up in the great filter as being this slow kind of glogging on process toward an ending, but it could be for a lot of previous civilizations or previous ages, so to speak, sudden, violent, and disruptive.
Yeah, well, and this is the one that a lot of people like to compare us to Rome. And there's a lot of good comparisons to this modern age to Rome. But I kind of look at the Bronze Age collapse closer because it's a world economy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got Petra that's built because of the Bronze Age. You've got the earliest ignitions of the Silk Road because of this Bronze Age. You've probably got, this is me just thinking, but you probably have the Philistines, the modern day, why is my mind lost? Palestinians appearing where they are at a huge crossroads for trade because of this Bronze Age. You had the Hittites, the Egyptians, everything. I mean, this was worldwide trade. So, and it ended abruptly. So could there have been something that broke that route? Could there have been a disruption at the tin production side? Could there have been a disruption at the many copper production sides? That's the big question. We don't know what ended it. Something ended it.
Mm.
And so that's the one that,
and it's likely they didn't even see it coming.
Yeah. Or maybe it did come on. Maybe it took a couple years. Looking at the records, they believe that there was a drought and a famine in a couple areas, and maybe those areas produced a lot of grains that fed the rest of the Bronze Age. We don't know. But whatever it was, it led to
kind of like our current world trade situation, where the technology that feeds our day-to-day lives, like the chips they put in vehicles and cell phones.
We need to get to that later, though. Let's not boil ahead too fast.
Okay.
Right now, we're just leading up. Story time, then scary time.
Story time first.
But yeah, so the Bronze Age ends, and it throws the world into upheaval, war, famine, drought, death. We have writings from the Mycenaean prince to the king saying we're being overthrown. They're burning our city down. I mean, it's catastrophe. But let's go with some news real quick. So now on September 11th, the media and the feds had a meet cute.
Yes.
At DC.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's a lot of we could say different thoughts about this. So supposedly on September 11th, there was supposed to be a Justice for J6 rally at Washington, D.C.
I heard nothing about it except for mainstream media.
I heard about it also from a couple of really hardcore leftists that I follow.
Oh.
So it was boiling over there. So they had so the media and obviously the Fed show. This is a picture of some of the guys that were there.
They put the fences up. They called in the National Guard. They beefed up their security.
Yeah, they did all the stuff. But the hilarious thing is these guys are trying to infiltrate right-wing groups. Now, okay, the guy that's looking over his shoulder
in the acid wash
shorts for the acid wash jeans might have been able to infiltrate something.
Perhaps.
But then you've got a sea of khaki shorts and
golf shirts,
t-shirts,
yeah,
homemade shorts, jorts, I believe. They all have the exact same glasses on.
Uh-huh.
They all have a military style haircut.
Uh-huh.
So a couple people were arrested. 4 people were arrested. One of them was a undercover ATF agent was arrested, and they don't have information on the other 3 yet. But I just think it's funny. This is here's a side note. We have built this military industrial complex into a surveillance and war state.
Sure.
And there's the ATF agent being arrested.
Listen, I'm on your team.
He's like, yeah, if you look in my back pocket, there's my badge. All right.
I'm infiltrating.
And look at how these cops
guys.
are dressed.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's beyond riot gear.
urban people have been saying this forever. People in the urban areas that the police are becoming militarized, and they are. They have.
100%.
It's been, since
They've lost touch with their communities that they serve.
Yeah, when Reagan started handing out, surplus to police departments, I think we crossed a line. But then again, also, the community needs to take some accountability for this.
Sure.
Be a community where these police don't show up like September 11th was. They showed up, and the feds and the media hung out. They had a meet cute.
Meet cute.
There was no
There was no rally.
yeah, there was nothing there. I think they had one little speech, and that was it. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a comical story to me that happened. I just like the picture of those.
You can imagine them, trying to rile up the 5 other people that showed.
That's like that Whitmer thing that went on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you had 18 people arrested in the Whitmer kidnapping, and 12 of them were feds.
Yeah.
The people organizing it was feds.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. It was ridiculous, and it was a political ploy. We've seen it done with the first World Trade Center bombing.
Huh?
That was feds ran that, initiated it, built the bomb, gave the bomb to the guy. It's crazy. One day we're going to have to just play it on the show. The bomb maker that worked for the feds was a Middle Eastern guy that had converted over to, whatever, and had decided to work for the feds. And then he said to him, hey, I can make this bomb so it looks real, so everyone thinks it's real. It doesn't have to be real. And the feds were like, no, we want it to be real. So they made it real. And people got hurt, and some people died because they made it real.
Yep.
When they had the opportunity to make a fake one, but that's because the feds have to get paid.
True.
And that's why it was done that way. But yeah. All right. So before we get back into it, let's go through some quick comments.
Hi, Gary.
Yep. Hi, Laura. Hi, Gary. Yes, Gary, we need to hang out. And before they take you back up again, I hope that they haven't blown any O-rings out. Just want to say that if we're talking about aliens or anywhere else.
Kegel Foo, Gary.
Yeah, Kegel Foo. I need to teach that. I need to have a class.
Sarah's wearing her WOW podcast shirt today.
Yes. Hi, Sarah. Ryan is with you. Hi, Ryan. Jamie asks, how can I watch previous podcast thingy? I'm kind of new to this technology and like your comments. All right. So you can find us on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute.
Apple.
Yeah, Apple. Just anywhere. You can come to our website and link it from there. That's thewildpod.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can go there, or you can send me a personal message on Facebook or wherever you link up with me at, and I will just forward you the links, or Betsy, whoever you want to talk to. All right, so we're going to get back into it. All right, so another historical great filter.
I don't know much about this one.
So the Golden Age of Islam. Golden Age of Islam. So there was the Abbasid Caliph. Okay, there's a whole bunch of words in here I can't say. But it started around 786 to 809, and it started in 786, and they believe that this is where most of the scrolls and scripts from the Library of Alexandria went to after. So this became the new Alexandria. Now, history on Alexander the Great, and all his conquering, he did have one good thing. He liked to gather intelligence and art and math and science and everything else. He liked to gather it. So he had collected it, and then his general who took over Egypt afterwards, Cleopatra's great grandfather, I believe it was, in honor of Alexander, built the Library of Alexandria in the city of Alexandria that he built in honor of Alexander the Great. And it was a major trading town, and when someone would come in, a part of your deal you made to do trade there is they would come aboard and get to see any science or document you had, and they would make a copy of it. And they never stole it from you, but
they would just take
they were just, and this was really the first time that you saw
collaboration like that.
Yeah. But then there's many rumors about what started it. A Christian started it because Christianity used to be as bad as any religion ever when it came to women. At one time, it employed women. If a woman had scientific intelligence, they were employed at the library. It could have been, marauders. It could have been an accidental knock over a candle. We don't really know, but the fire at the library started and burned it to the ground, but a lot of the scrolls were saved. And it is said they were taken to Baghdad, where the Abbasid Caliphate was set up, and it's called the Golden Age of Islam. And this is where from that time and before, Islam had an explosion of science.
Yeah.
They
likely because of that collaboration.
this is the time when algebra shows up.
Oy.
Algebra is an Islamic word. The writing we use now is born then and there. Our math, the way we measure stuff, geometry, it's all born there. These guys were extremely impressive. And then another golden group comes along, the Golden Horde. One of the generals of Genghis Khan, how'd it go? So here's what we understand is that the Golden Horde sent an emissary there and said, hey, join with us, be a lesser to us. And the Caliphate cut his head off and returned his head. So the Golden Horde invaded it and burned it to the ground, destroyed it. And that's when they think that the majority of the Library of Alexandria was lost. And the quote that comes out of that time is, the Tigris and the Euphrates ran black with ink and red with blood. They killed everybody. They killed every woman that was a wife and every man that was taller than the spoke on a wagon.
Oh my gosh.
A wagon spoke's about 2 feet high.
I would argue that war like that has ended many civilizations.
Oh, how many times? Well, if you're a geek like me and you like to study dinosaurs, the Spinosaur, the dinosaur off of Jurassic Park, the one that had the big sail on its back that was like a T-Rex on roids, when realistically it wasn't that big and awesome. But in a museum in Berlin, and in a museum in Berlin during World War II, and there was a lot of bombings in Berlin during World War II. And so we lost our specimen of the Spinosaur for, I think, something like 42 years.
Dang.
Until they found another specimen. Spinosaur was from England, from Northwest Europe, and Northern Africa. So there's things like that. But this ended the scientific age of Islam. And a lot of people have argued that Islam has not been the same since this. Islam at this time was the center of science. They were
not considered what they are today.
Well, they didn't even consider themselves that. They were open to ideas and debate. They kind of carried on the Greek idea of debating science and finding the truth and questioning everything. And this is argued when the Golden Horde invaded was what stopped that. Now for another quick fun story. So, a young man, he
you're gonna shield your eyes because he's about to share it with you.
He told his he had to go into the doctor. Will you let the cat out real quick? He had to go into the doctor. He had a USB cord stuffed up his urethra. And he said it was to measure himself.
Okay, so
you're
a teen. Think fast. Think fast. Why is this in here? Okay, think fast. Okay, I was measuring. Yeah.
There's a picture of it up on the screen for those watching. So is
that his like whole cord wadded up in there?
Okay, yeah, it looks like it's got a knot tied in it and then pushed in. And I'm wondering, was there? It says in here the phallic fiasco began after an unnamed 15-year-old boy was triggered by sexual curiosity and inserted a USB wire into his urethra.
Okay, so the retrieval of this has me bewildered because you can't just yard it out. It's got like a knot down in there. It's got a knot down in there.
There's a picture of the cable and there's blood and hair on it. It is rough. Do you
slice it open lengthwise? Peel it back like a banana to retrieve it?
We're good. We're good. Thanks for joining us for that part of this show. Oh,
how do you remove this? Let's get beyond the why because you can't explain teenage boys. But the removal of this,
there is not enough local anesthesia. There's not enough local anesthesia to get it in there.
Like that's like a whole knot.
It was, yeah.
Did he do like the cherry stem where he put it in and then tied the?
Oh. All right. Let's get back to the story. That one's rough.
Death and destruction is much easier than that story.
Another time we had a historical great filter was the Native Americans when Christopher Columbus first came over.
Yeah.
He came over, and when he left behind a disease. Now, I would say that this disease decimated the population, but I would be lying because it only reverse decimated the population. It killed all but like 10%.
Yeah. Look at the Taíno Indians from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
There isn't any living descendants. The Spanish conquistadors arrived, brought in disease and petulance, and
when they left,
literally they DNA tested a large group of Puerto Ricans born and raised there. No DNA is left. They completely annihilated an entire society.
And it's a disease that got left behind.
Yep.
There's writings from that time, guys that came over with him the first time, and then guys that came back, I think it was like 8 years later or 5 years later. And they came back and they wrote, "Where did everybody go?
Nobody is here."
It killed whole tribes. We don't even know who it killed. We don't know. Again, you can also write about the Aztec culture, which is destroyed by the Catholics and the conquistadors. They destroyed them. We've got cultures that were pretty close to destroyed here in Northern America, but nothing like what was done by the disease, which I would argue that is a Fermi paradox.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate one, where there wasn't like a better society or a stronger society came, and it was a society met a society, and the one society delivered a disease.
And arguably, anytime you go out to attain lands that are currently inhabited, there will be this type of conflict. It may not be to the level of, down to 10% or less, but there will be a loss of civilization.
Yeah, it's and the difference was that the Europeans had more close culture with domesticated animals, and that's where these diseases are born. And the natives in Central America didn't have
the immunities to it,
that
the built
experience.
Up. Yeah.
So we're looking at
we are our biomes that we call our bodies are super complex, and just being exposed to over long periods of time, even generationally, different forms of livestock change your immune response. Something that is completely just has no bearing on your immune system at all, if introduced to somewhere where they don't have that livestock, is devastating.
Yeah, it destroyed societies, and they left and came back and were like, what happened?
Yeah.
Where did everyone go? And so, yeah. All right. And there is a lot of fun news right now. Okay. This one I don't think Betsy has heard of.
I have not. I hadn't heard of the last one.
So I'm going to have Betsy read this story.
All right. Scorned wife raids ex-husband's cryogenic lab, stealing frozen brains of people who hoped to be brought back to life. So she raids a lab.
This
and
happened
steals
last Friday.
Frozen brains.
Uh-huh.
All right. So Valerie Udalova, 59, and staff from her company. So she had like a raid party.
Mm-hmm.
Grabbed the remains of people who paid thousands of pounds hoping they could be resurrected. What is her plan?
So
some of the corpses were from Britain and the U.S. and were stored in Valerie's ex-husband's, Danila Medvedev, 41, lab in Moscow. So she was getting back at him. The lab is Russia's leading cryo storage facility, say reports. The drained liquid nitrogen from giant Dewar flasks containing frozen bodies. Okay, so they drained the liquid from these, grabbed these, and some detached human brains, then loaded them on trucks. What the hell is wrong with her? Police were called and intercepted the macabre cargo of human remains preserved by Frankenstein. You named it Frankenstein technology.
This is a true story too. This is
this Frankenstein technology offered humans the chance to come back to life in the future.
So you would pay them, I think it was $20,000. God, they've got the prices in here.
And it's just a storage facility. So the brains were of neuro patients, it goes on to say.
So you would pay him 26,000 pounds to save your whole body. Or just the brain, like if you wanted to be the brain in the jar, it was 11,000 pounds, which I think roughly is, I think it's like $23,000 and $9,000. 82 patients. So she gets mad at her husband, breaks into his facility where he's got people frozen.
And steals the people.
Stole some of the people. I think how many, it says in here how many she stole.
The idea was that this brain could be stored and then placed in another human body in the future.
Until we had the technology to revive it and bring it to life.
Okay, can you imagine? One day, you're ready to die.
Okay, here's what I can't imagine.
You wake up in a whole nother body?
Here's what I can't imagine. Spending this money, keeping it from your kids for whatever. Yeah, I'm waking up in a whole nother body. And then they say, okay, here's our warehouse. It is a raw concrete floor with just tin walls and these vats.
We're going to store you here.
How many-
$26,000, please.
How many brains are in a vat?
Oh.
I'm going to flash the vat up on screen so people can see this fine establishment.
And he named it Frankenstein.
So this
Technology.
is her. That's him. You paid $9,000, $10,000 to have your brain kept in that.
I want to know what was your game plan?
It looks like an industrial septic tank.
It really does. Turned on its end.
Yeah.
What was your plan?
So he's out shopping for septic tanks and gets a great idea.
What, when you steal these, did you intend to hold them ransom? Because you didn't. I mean, obviously the decay starts to happen immediately once the septic tank's cracked open. What was your plan? I don't understand her plan.
Maybe ransom him back to him or just a punishment for him. But she may get jail time for this.
That's
for
punishing
theft.
you to
But
break
here's the
open a
question.
septic tank and steal brains. That is self-punishment.
I want to see this one worked out in court because I've heard there's the first Texas court case come up on its abortion ban. And we should chat about that at the very end of this. But there is, how do they work that in court? Because she stole property because she can't get charged for murder yet because the people died.
Oh,
But could she be charged for grave robbing?
could that be considered a final
you know,
resting place?
And I don't know. And
where
if
its
their
intention is not to rest.
if their body's in a grave, but their brain's in a septic tank, would that still apply to the grave? I don't know. I want to see what happens with this. That's a very interesting one. So
Jamie says, wandering from body to body.
yeah, just hopping in, or no, I'm telling you, put me in the spider leg.
And is our
Glass jar
conscience,
brain.
is our conscious in our brain? Or is it something bigger than that?
Is it everything? You know, our stomach does a lot of neuron work for us.
Right. So
I mean, you've got the whole neural system, but then he had whole live bodies. So maybe they invent.
So, but if you save the whole live body, what, you want to come back in that body that's
Maybe they learn
used
how
up?
to regenerate it
Oh.
or just replace parts of it that need to be replaced. I mean, like hair and you know, genitalia. I don't know, but I just think it's funny. She broke in and stole that as revenge. But so what happened with the Native Americans was that was kind of the
collision of two
that was
civilizations.
a definitely a Fermi paradox for one
Mhm.
society, but it didn't really,
But it wasn't at their hands.
and it wasn't at their hands. But it's not always. Sometimes you invent this on accident. You know, you meet up with this on
Like
accident.
you can't see the ramifications of what you're doing.
Yeah. So now in this next part of the show, we want everyone really to get involved on your thoughts because we want to talk about what are some possible Fermi paradoxes that
We may be leading
that
up
we
to.
see. We do know during World War I, they hypothesized that we were meeting up. Now the Fermi paradox hasn't been invented, but people talked about we were going to end humanity through the use of TNT.
Yeah.
World War II at the end of
It
that.
was so destructive.
And up until today, they've talked about it with nuclear.
Yep.
And nuclear still is kind of a sword of Damocles that hangs over our head.
Oh yeah.
You know,
100%.
the nuclear weapons that is owned by the nations could still do some major stuff.
And it comes back to the idea, like what happened in Islam, that sharing of information, where we as a world can become very secular in our growth, but when we integrate, then that technology becomes available to everyone.
Well, and it spreads around. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look at that. I mean, right now we got China, India, Pakistan, Israel, France. Germany, England. Does Germany? I'll bet Germany does. I think Israel, Egypt might, definitely us, maybe a little bit in Canada. All have nuclear weapons. All have nuclear weapons. Oh, if a major war broke out, we could end it.
Well, because it would realistically only take one to start, and then that would create this chain reaction of nuclear warfare.
And I mean, that could end all of life.
Yes.
All of human life.
Yeah.
So that's a big sword of Damocles that hangs over our head.
Yep.
And we're kind of living with through the mutual threat. Another possibility. This isn't really the Fermi paradox, but this is an extinction event that still hangs over our heads. The same one that took out the late Jurassic dinosaurs, which was a meteorite or asteroid striking the Earth and causing and bringing on that ice age and snuffing out almost all life.
And we had a near miss not that long ago. That big meteorite that came,
was that Mui
in Russia.
Oh yeah.
It actually was brighter than the sun. We didn't even see it coming.
Yeah.
And it, kind of flew in, but
came in on the side.
It
killed.
damaged like 7,000 buildings on
Yeah,
its way
it killed
in.
like 32 people. From accidents relating to it. I don't think it hit anybody. There are small meteorite deaths in the last 10 years. I think there was one, the latest one I read was in 2003, if I remember, a lady standing by her swimming pool. One came through and just hit her.
You ain't living right if that happens.
Just, hey.
Add that to sinkholes. If you are asleep in bed and a sinkhole opens up underneath your bedroom, you ain't living right. I'm just saying.
But yeah.
Meteorite, same thing. You ain't living right.
Right through the meteorite. Then you've got that's not really the Fermi paradox where we destroy ourselves, but maybe we're at a midpoint technologically where we can't defend ourselves against it. So there's a couple other ones. One that we've come into contact lately and that's been in the news a lot is biological. Inventing that new disease that tears through society.
Yeah.
And the reports that are coming out now is that the COVID virus that we have is a virus that was, they call it gain of function research. And what you do is you take a virus that we know about and everything else, and you give it some roids and give it maybe some new spikes or pokies, whatever.
Make it more virulent.
But you make it more dangerous. And then maybe they were doing that honestly. Maybe they were doing that saying, well, what if COVID did this? Can we make this and study it?
I guess gain of function research is dangerous. I would like to understand the intent.
Well, we know what Fauci's intent is. Fauci's wrote many papers about why he thinks we need to do gain of function research. We need to do it to prepare for if the virus does that on its own. Okay. I say, let's wait until we build you a lab on the moon.
Yeah.
Or Mars. And then let's do it. Because right now he released one that's, let's be honest, quite survivable. I know there's a lot more hype around it than it actually deserves. So it's not the big destroyer that we're calling it, except economically.
It has opened the door.
But what's the next one?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about chemical agents in World War I. They started using, first it was chlorine, then mustard. Then they started using nerve agents, then nerve agent. Exploration went further and further. And the only reason it wasn't used in World War II was because the leaders on both sides of World War I feared the other side using it. I mean, Hitler in World War I had been bit by chlorine. And so that concerns him. I mean, you go back to the bubonic plague, where ancient armies would throw dead animals over the walls to spread the Black Plague inside the city, and that was a part of their warfare. Let's not do it where it's I'm worried the next virus. So COVID got released. Okay, it's not the deadliest thing ever. It's not, but what if the next one actually is deadly?
Yeah.
Like, is
the next engineered lab created virus.
Yeah, I mean, this one killed, even people who contracted it, like 0.5% or something, 0.05. It was a tiny number. But what if they got one? You read about the Spanish flu, and everybody had a family member that succumbed.
1/3 of the world's population was killed by the Spanish flu. 1/3. I know that they try to make this new virus feel, and they've made reference to it being like the Spanish flu, but it doesn't even.
That's the media just looking for those pies and numbers.
It pales in comparison to the Spanish flu. But if something like that were to come about, that could definitely be a great filter.
And what if it's something they made?
Yeah.
That's the worst part. That's where it's actually Fermi paradox, where society, this is the definition, society advances to the point where it kills itself.
Yeah.
Another one is global warming. Global warming, if we were to advance enough to kill ourselves through global warming, whether it's CO2 gas buildup on the outside, or we just become fat and lazy and die of heart attacks, like on that cartoon with the little robot. That is
Wall-E.
another. Yeah, Wall-E. I don't think I've ever seen it.
That's so cute.
Know the outline. I haven't seen a cartoon. My kid's 26.
That's true.
I don't see cartoons anymore. Well,
The
he
one
watches them still, but
the one I like the most is meeting or searching for extraterrestrial life.
well, that's where this came from. Where are they? Where are the aliens? And they believe there's a filter that exists that eliminates societies from conquering the cosmos.
Yes. And
that is,
if we did find, much like Columbus, if we did find an alien race,
I'm blowing COVID in their face.
See how
it goes.
by way of sending, like Stephen Hawking said, we need to keep a low profile. Like, quit sending signals into space. Yeah. Just like that. We need to quit sending signals into space, because what will make it to us would be the most advanced technology in the cosmos.
That's another question. Let's say
they would arrive, and who knows how.
What if they're
it wouldn't
friendly?
end well.
What if they're friendly? But one of them bastards has a Mars cold.
Yes.
And they come here and they get the human cold, kills both societies.
Yeah.
That's another thought. I mean, that's what happened on the what was that? Yes, Cassandra, we're not talking about COVID. We're talking about the Great Filter.
Yes.
The Fermi paradox, but how COVID or how a COVID-like incident, where it's coming out now, it's looking more and more like we paid our money to EcoHealth Alliance to go to the Wuhan lab to invent this new disease, to run tests on it, of course, not to release it. And then,
shit happens.
But what if they invent a disease that is actually a nightmare, that is actually that killer, or what if they invent a disease that makes zombies? How about that? Let's look at the shows where inventing a disease, is the be all end all. You've got the Andromeda Strain. You've got V for Vendetta. You've got The Stand. All of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fauci, stop
it.
Practice on what's there.
Yeah.
Or build a moon base and play with your shit up. Play with your toys somewhere else.
I think the one that makes the most sense to me is artificial intelligence. Because if you look at technology,
That's the ender.
yes,
I've seen all the documentaries.
yeah,
I've seen Terminator
iRobot.
1 through 7, iRobot, The Matrix.
Yep, all
Those
documentaries.
are Fermi Paradox. That is the ultimate, where we create, where the parents of the creation
yes,
that
eliminates
ends us or
us.
conquers us or enslaves us to be batteries. I mean,
Because if you look at it, if you look at it, artificial intelligence would learn and adapt at a rate that we can't even comprehend. It would collect data fed into it by this worldwide web of information that it would have complete access to, and it would put it all together and file it away, and it would decide within a matter of seconds that humans suck.
Yeah.
And it would eliminate us.
Well,
it would say they cause war, they disparage one another, they are unkind.
Remember the Twitter robot they made?
Yeah.
That became like a Nazi fascist overnight?
Like 12 hours? They had to shut it off?
And then they had those two robots. I think it was at MIT? They made two robots that would audibly communicate with each other, right? And they turn them on, go home that night, come back, and the robots are speaking not the language they programmed them.
Whole new language.
So they asked the robots, kind of said, what do you do? Oh, well, your language wasn't fast enough. So we invented our own. They pulled the plug, freaked them out. They pulled those guys right now. All of them are shopping for Unabomber housing.
Yeah. Artificial intelligence could be, because it's this slow push towards it. It seems more convenient. It's faster. It takes less people to manage it. But you build artificial intelligence that they can't reason, but they can put together information. We're done for.
Well, it's like that documentary. There's a sequel to the documentary. It's coming out, Christmas? What if we made the artificial intelligence and we're already in it?
Yeah.
What if this is, the simulation and we're in it?
Could be.
Because we made it. And then you've got, CERN.
But why? They wouldn't, they've got no use for us.
Batteries.
What battery am I
Enjoyment,
providing?
pleasure. What if the AI likes watching us do whatever? They don't
release
care.
Viruses.
They're like, the AI's like, man, this is getting kind of boring. Trump's president. And then boom,
let's shake things up.
And then it's all over, CNN and MSNBC and Fox, and everybody loses their minds, and the border puts up a whole bunch of, whole bunch of stuff. But, you've got that. Or what about when CERN kicks on the Hadron Collider in 2012, a few months before the Mayan calendar day end, and for some reason the Mayan calendar didn't come true, but it feels like it. Yeah,
like we skipped.
So what if it did? What if it did come true, and this is what the end of it looks like?
So if you think about the Great Filter as like this staircase to the top, I would argue that we are likely about the third step down.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
Maybe.
That's the thing. A lot of people look at the Great Filter as you've got to elevate to pass through. It's a funnel, and each little step of the funnel is a different step of you inventing something through hubris or anger or any of those things the Bible tells you not to do, or the Quran, or the Jewish book, all that stuff. They tell you, the Torah, that's it.
the Jewish book.
They tell you not to do these things, and you've got to reach that perfect being, that state of nirvana, to pass through the center of that filter.
To slip through the center.
And
maybe that's what we should all focus on.
So
reaching nirvana so that we can individually Slip through
Have
the
you
filter.
ever seen the Hot Crazy Matrix?
Hot Crazy Matrix?
Yeah, I'll have to show you a video. It's a whole thing. It's a graph. It's a whole connecting lines. But anyways, maybe that's the thing. How crazy is what you're inventing versus how unnirvana are you?
Yeah.
And if they meet anywhere but in that perfect point,
Yeah.
you will find the end. And the question is, I mean, right now, obviously, my fear lies on the biological because it's our current paradigm, where 3 years ago, I would say universally everyone's fear was nuclear.
Yep.
Everyone's fear was nuclear war. And this has said biological warfare is what we need to be afraid of. You know, it's gone on forever.
Yep.
So here's the story. DARPA, Pentagon. This come out September 24th. DARPA, Pentagon releases documents on secret plan to release coronavirus 18 months before pandemic.
Yeah. So 18 months before.
Yes, 18 months before the pandemic, scientists in Wuhan, China submitted a proposal to release enhanced airborne coronaviruses into the wild in an effort to inoculate them against disease that could have otherwise jumped to humans. So they were trying to release a coronavirus that was made to be absorbed through the skin of bats into the wild bats, because I guess the coronavirus really comes from bats mostly. Bats a perfect carrier for it. I guess it's in everything else, but bats is the ideal carrier. So it was how do they say it? Skin penetrating nanoparticles containing novel chimeric spike proteins.
They wanted to release them into bat caves in Yunnan, China.
Novel chimeric spike proteins. If anyone has watched the debates going on in the Senate right now, you like, let's say Rand Paul talking to Dr. Fauci, you've heard these words. Novel chimeric spike proteins of bat coronavirus into cave bats in Yunnan, China. They also plan to create chimeric viruses genetically enhanced to infect humans more easily, and requested $14 million from DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, to fund the work.
Boom.
The bid was submitted by zoologist Peter Daszak.
Remember that name.
Of U.S.-based Eco Health Alliance, who was hoping to use genetic engineering to cobble human-specific cleavage sites. Remember those words? These are all words you hear in these arguments going on between Fauci and Paul. This was 18 months before it was released. Now there's a Chinese defector who says there was military games in Wuhan in October of 2019.
There's always, that should be your first indication that something is about to go down.
You know, the argument is that the Spanish flu originated in Wuhan too.
Yes.
And I wonder if that's just because Wuhan's maybe a crossroads or a built-up area where commonly a lot of diseases come from. Anyway, so let's go further. The
bid was submitted.
Yeah, and it was denied.
Yes.
But then NIH said sure.
Yeah.
Now NIH funded them. We haven't seen this bid come out of the NIH stuff yet, or we may not. Or maybe the NIH didn't fund this specifically, or maybe Daszak put in a bid for something else and then turned the money over to this. We don't know.
The idea is this may be the first step into the next great filter, that this has opened the door for the next great filter, whether it is an iteration of this exact virus as it evolves and gets new variants and things, or a brand new one. And this was like a test run.
Maybe. Oh, and maybe they think they're doing good. Maybe they actually think they are. But if they do, they made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Unless maybe, what's that book? The Wonderful Travels of
Baron Trump.
Baron Trump. Maybe he stopped in and said, "Hey, you need to hurry up and invent this so we build an inoculation to this and jump it ahead."
Could be.
But I mean, information's coming out left and right. I don't know how this is going to shake out, but
Very interesting.
this is
Very timely for a great filter conversation.
it's scary as all get out.
Yeah.
It is extremely scary. But yeah, anyway, so we are doing our website only show today, and that'll be up
Tomorrow or Monday.
yeah, it'll be up tomorrow or Monday, but probably Sunday because we got that event tomorrow to go to. But we are going to be talking about we're going to be digging in on this
Craziness.
this COVID stuff and hypothesizing about that. I mean, we both actually think a little different on it, but we wonder what is going on. So it's just going to be an off the hook one. The reason it's going to be a website only is because it would be canceled off anything else, and our website lets us have it there until they don't. And if you go there and our website's gone,
You'll know why.
Yeah, we went past Facebook jail and went to some other jail. But anyways, yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone. Remember, Frankenstein Industries, if you want your body frozen. And honestly, when you look at it, if it costs you, $16,000 to be frozen, how much does a funeral cost? It's not that much more.
Probably a little less, but not by much.
Yeah, go for it, and maybe you get another free truck ride a couple months down the road when he gets a divorce.
Pick someone who has a healthy marriage, because exes are crazy.
Go for the good time. You want to be a story. You want to be a story. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Have a great week.
Yeah. We need to watch out what's going on.
That's right.